If you watched my latest, most anticipated movies of 2026, you'd know that Iron Lung was on it. I'm a huge supporter of passion projects, especially in filmmaking, and I genuinely commend Markiplier for seeing a project like this through to completion. We're often quick to criticize films like this without first acknowledging the sheer accomplishment of making one at all. With that being said, let's talk about it. The core premise of Iron Lung leaves a lot to explore, which is one of the main reasons I was excited for it in the first place. It's set after the Quiet Rapture, a cosmic-like event where the stars and planets have vanished. A convict is sent on a fatal mission to pilot a submarine through a newly discovered ocean of blood on a desolate moon to look for answers or anything that can be salvaged for resources. When video games are adapted into films, they generally fall into one of three lanes. You have the extremely faithful adaptation, recreating the game's atmosphere and experience almost beat for beat. You have the inspired adaptation, which is taking liberties to better suit the medium of film while keeping the spirit of the game intact. And then you have complete reimaginings, which is sharing a little more than the names or basic concepts, but being complete reimaginings of the video game itself. This film firmly falls into the first category. It is extremely faithful to the Iron Lung video game, almost to a fault. Certain elements that work incredibly well in the video game setting don't always necessarily translate as effectively to film. More specifically, in games, the player controls the pacing and discovery. We can exist in uncertainty longer because we're actively participating in the illusion of choice. In a movie, if the audience doesn't fully understand what's happening, you risk the potential of eventually losing their reason to care. The mysteries presented here leave a lot unexplored, and while that ambiguity works in the game, it feels limiting in a passive viewing experience, especially if you came into this movie without previous knowledge of the video game. Perhaps a sequel could expand on this, but as it stands, the story feels underdeveloped and heavily reliant upon the mysteries of the unknown. One of the film's strongest aspects is the submarine itself. The attention to detail is clear, from the green dials and the depth sensors to the oxygen indicators and the near total lack of visibility outside of the vessel itself. You can see how closely the film mirrors the game's perspective, and that said, the visual language becomes a bit repetitive. We're often shown the same shots of the condensation dripping inside the sub and repeated movements through its tight corridors. While atmospheric at first, this repetition causes the film to drag, at least it did for me, especially as it passes the 1 hour mark without substantial story beats in the form of answers to our many questions that attempt to propel you forward. The X-ray camera used to see through the ocean of blood is pulled directly from the game and remains one of the more interesting mechanics throughout the film. As Markiplier, his character progresses, isolation, begins to set in, and you start losing the grip on what is real and what isn't. The camera work itself is quite impressive, and the passion behind the project is evident in the details. Some shots are a bit too tightly zoomed in, though, but visually the film remains striking, and for a first film, it is quite impressive. Also, for a bit of movie trivia, that I thought was interesting. This movie now officially holds the record for the most fake blood used in a movie. From what I would have sourced, an estimated 80,000 gallons of fake blood. Now, this wouldn't matter, of course, if the blood looked faked, but for those hoping to see horror fashion blood-like elements on screen, this film certainly doesn't disappoint. Markiplier's performance is solid, and it really helps carry the film. While his character is somewhat one-noted, going between confused, fearful, and dropping frequent F-bombs, he does enough to keep you engaged. But I couldn't help but think if Mark had more people around him helping him with the script and the direction of this film, certain elements of his performance would have been dialed back, improved upon, or perhaps rewritten to better serve the story. Where the tension occasionally falters is in the sound design. Dialogue over comms can feel muffled or unevenly mixed, making it difficult at times to understand what's being said. That said, the claustrophobic dread is still effectively conveyed through the atmosphere. I just wish at times I had subtitles to verify what was being said, especially when you get near the final act, as it does begin to ramp up. Ultimately, if Markiplier's goal was to create a faithful adaptation of Iron Lung, then he absolutely succeeded, and this should be viewed as a success. As a film, however, I wish he had taken more creative liberties, expanded the lore, fleshing out the world, and exploring what exists beyond the submarine. While I appreciate the moments where the film explains certain mechanics, like the necessity of an X-ray camera in an ocean of blood, there were countless opportunities to broaden the scope and deepen the mythology. I commend Markiplier for completing his passion project, and the visuals are undeniably unique, satisfying and grotesque, but the lack of narrative expansion prevents this from being a film that I would personally revisit multiple times. Given the limited resources, the budgetary restraints, and everything that inevitably comes with making a film, I'm genuinely glad Iron Lung made it to the finish line and that it appears to be turning a profit. I hope this experience encourages Mark to continue pursuing filmmaking and to build on what worked while learning from what didn't. Knowing how passionate he is about this project, I'm sure every minute detail was intentional, even if it didn't always land for me personally. And that's the beauty of film. It's subjective and it resonates with each of us in different ways. And at the end of the day, Markiplier took a game that not many people had heard of and managed to turn it into a full-length feature film. And honestly, that alone should be worth celebrating. As always, thanks for watching and tuning in to Film Sense with Brian. I hope to see you on the next movie review. Bye, guys.